So are we good to go? Oh. Are we okay to get started? Kristen, are you okay on the technology?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes, I apologize. Yes.
Okay, excellent. I had a couple pop-ups on my end saying that we're recording and all that stuff, so I'm assuming that was on your side. So my name's Tim Johnson. I'm the chair of this committee, and I call this regular meeting of the Major X Citizen Oversight Committee to order. We are conducting this meeting by teleconference and is being recorded. The agenda for this meeting is on the city's website at www.santa-ana.org, and members of the public will have the opportunity to address the Major X Citizen Oversight Committee regarding agenda and non-agenda items during the public comment section of the meeting. And I know that we have two guests here, so we'll make sure that if you have anything to say, that hopefully get you. Even though we are not physically together, if everyone would please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance wherever you might be. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, excellent. Staff, would you please mind calling the roll, please?
Hernandez is excused. Cargosian.
Present.
Lewis.
Present.
Lugo is excused. Pereira.
Present.
Vice Chair Landverdi.
Present.
Chair Johnson.
And I'm here also.
We have a quorum.
All right, excellent. And so this will be the time that to express the public comments on agenda and also non-agenda items. Staff, do we have any members of the public that might wish to speak on any items this evening?
I do not believe anybody has raised their hand to speak. We do have a couple of guests joining us, but
so Kristen, just out of abundance of caution, so I don't think we've explained on how, just making sure that the folks know to press that raise hand button on their Zoom Zoom link there. So if any of our guests want to say anything, just to push that raise hand. Is that right, Kristen?
that is correct. And I do not see a raised hand.
Okay, perfect. All right. Our next item on the agenda is our consent calendar, which has 2 items on it, including the approval of the minutes. Actually, yeah. So there are two items on the consent calendar this meeting, and so if anyone would like to pull one of those items, now would be the time to do that. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion otherwise. And I'm going to pull actually item number 2, which was a public comment item. And I would entertain a motion to approve the remainder, which is the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Perfect. Staff, would you call the roll or call the vote? I'm sorry. Kristen, you're on mute right now.
Hernandez is excused. Cargosian.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Lugo is excused. Pereira.
Aye.
Vice Chair Landverdi.
Aye.
Chair Johnson.
That's an aye for me also.
Motion passes.
All right, excellent. And so the item that I pulled is if everyone remembers, we had set up a email system for public to be able to submit comments to our committee. And so I pulled that, and I believe that this is a receive and file, so there's no particular action that is needed other than approving the receiving and the filing of it. But if I, all of us are probably a little bit new to this, so I might ask Director Downs, are we able to comment on that type of item at this point, or would we save it for later?
Yeah, you can comment on it. So basically, the purpose of doing this is the committee may remember that we set it up as a one-way communication so that the public could give their comments to the committee and that the committee could take those in. So what we do is we attach them to the agenda each time, and this would be the first time, and so that it's part of the public record to demonstrate that the committee did indeed receive those comments. And should you choose to comment on the comments, that's fine. But theoretically, this would be a situation where somebody might be giving their opinion to the committee of business that is part of your agenda, and you would take that into consideration. Like, for example, when you're developing your annual report, you might say, we have been receiving a lot of comments about X, Y, and Z. Maybe we should incorporate that into our annual report, or maybe we should talk about that. So that's kind of what this is meant for. The particular content of this one, it is kind of interesting, but it's definitely not Measure X money, and it's not even general fund money. But yes, the committee is perfectly welcome to comment on this comment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Since I'm the one that pulled it, I'm going to go ahead and speak first. And so first, as Director Downs said, this is our first one. So I'm glad the system, hopefully everyone got it. I'm glad the system worked and that someone took the time to provide their feedback. This is a relatively new committee in the life of the city. And so, I think there's some confusion on what our Measure X Oversight Committee actually has, what we're charged to do with our charter. And as Director Downs said, I just wanted to especially if the person that wrote this is listening, appreciate the comments, but it is outside the scope of our Measure X oversight, meaning that the money that specifically I believe that she's referring to is probably the ARPA money. And I would encourage all the public to take time to speak into these types of items when it is before the city council. I believe that this the items that she's referring to in this email are what was publicly subject to public debate and disclosure and public comments back in July. And I would just encourage all the public to be able to watch for these items as it comes before the city council and to speak into it at the appropriate time, because speaking into it to this committee is not a forum that's going to make any change at that time. It obviously it could impact future type items, but it's not. It's very specific. ARPA is going to continue to be an item that Director Downs and her team is dealing with over the next few years. So I just encourage the entire community to really stay aware of what's happening here. I know, and it's new territory for all cities, not just the city of Santa Ana. So those are my comments on it, but I do appreciate this person submitting that. Does anyone else have any items on that? If not, or comments on it? If not, I think we would take a vote to just receive and file it. And seeing that no one's jumping up and down or raising their hands, if you, I would, I'll motion to receive and file this item if someone would second it, and then we can vote.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Member Perea.
And for that, excuse me, I'm
go-
Mary Maduena. I don't know. I don't see where I can put my hand up for the comments. I've been looking, and last time I did it, I closed out of the meeting.
Hi, Mary. This is Tim. I'm the chair of this committee, and the time for public comments was prior to this, but I believe that as chair, I have the prerogative to be able to allow comments after closing down that time. Is that correct, Director Downs? Okay,
Yes,
thank
it
you.
is correct.
And since we have not actually voted on this item yet, I'm going to take the prerogative to go ahead and let Mary go ahead and speak to this item.
Okay, I don't know what you were talking about was referring the email I sent out about the COVID relief funding that the cities are applying for and getting. And so I'm just wondering if you did receive it. I think I reached out to this committee twice to get comments back about just some of my concerns. So again, I don't know if you know what you were referring to with my email. Are you allowed to even say that? And I'm very new at all this. I've been to a couple of council meetings, and I'm sorry, I just can't see where I'm supposed to raise my hand.
Tim.
Oh,
That's okay, Mary. We are hearing you right now. So
Tim, it's Kristen. I did black out the name of the person who sent the email, but I'm confident that she's referring to this email. So you may want to explain the process to her with that.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If I might, Mary, and I know it was you that sent it, because when we all receive it, I believe that we receive, even though in the email and the agenda package, that it was, blacked out just from a privacy, I'm presuming a privacy perspective for you.
Okay.
But yes, the email that we were just discussing did come from you. So, we do appreciate that. It is as Director Downs had indicated, it is a one-way communication string, meaning that, so I appreciate you coming to this meeting, because this is where we can give some feedback.
Yes.
On it. But essentially for this committee, we're able to receive the emails. The concern is that if we start responding to everything, then all of our emails would be subject to open disclosure, PRA laws and all that type of stuff. But so I think that's why the decision was made to do essentially a receiving of emails from you. But yes, we are referring to your email that you sent in July.
Yes.
So.
Okay. No, the more I learn just from what you were saying about, you wouldn't reach back out to somebody. That's why I reached out the second time. So now I won't. And just for you, and just with you referring that this committee doesn't have any say in this matter. It's like you say at the council level, which I did. I sent it to all them, the mayor. I went to the U.S. Treasury Department guys. I'm keeping eyes. So this is all, like I said, a learning process for me. And my husband's sitting here doing the same thing. So again, thank you for just clarifying things. I'm learning every day how the city's working.
Yeah, and I would encourage you, Mary, and anyone else that's interested in ARPA money. I mean, even at last night's council meeting, I believe that there was some ARPA money that was allocated. And so if this is a concern, to stay on top of it and look at those city council agendas and speak into it when you have comments to it, because working from the back end after something's already been voted upon is much more difficult than on the front end.
Right, and I'm very late to all this.
Chair Johnson, would you permit me to add a little bit more information too?
Please do, yes.
Okay, yeah, since Mary took the time to come and join the committee tonight, I might as well see if I can help fill her in a little bit. So the spending plan that was adopted by the city council is just a spending plan, meaning that it's like, it's basically a lot of placeholders. The US Department of Treasury is responsible for publishing the guidelines that we are all to spend this money by. And so we've done our best to read those guidelines. They are still in an interim format, meaning that they've issued something called the interim final rule, meaning that the rules aren't final yet. And so they had a public comment period from all of us because we had comments about their interim final rule and some of their frequently asked questions. And I know I personally sent in some comments and questions to them. And I know I think most cities did. And so these guidelines are evolving. We expect that a final set will come out and maybe even some evolutions after that. So the spending plan is what the city council desires to do with that money. But as soon as we find out that something on that list is not going to fit within the federal guidelines, then we won't be spending the money on that item. Because if we did spend the money on that item and it's not compliant with the guidelines, then eventually we will have to pay it back out of our general fund. And nobody wants to do that. And so we have a whole team of staff that is being very careful about moving forward with any of these projects. So you're going to see them very slowly trickle out, and each individual project will likely need another city council approval before we can actually move forward with it. And the reason why it could need another city council approval is because it may involve a very large contract for services or spending some large sum of money, which requires further city council approval. So Chair Johnson is correct. These items will keep popping back up on the city council agenda. And it's really easy to spot them because in the agenda title for each item that comes back to city council, it will have the word revive in it in bold. And revive is the name of the city's spending plan. Yeah. And so you can always look for those revive items, and then you can make your further comments on each individual item as they return to city council. But I can assure you that we are not just going to start spending on these items without further city council approval if we need it. Most of the time we're going to need it because they're large dollar amounts. And then the other thing is, if we find out that they are not compliant with the guidelines, we will not be spending money on those items. So hopefully that helps. And if I welcome you to call me or email me if you have any further questions, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. And do you have a pencil? I can give you my email address.
Sure, hold on.
Okay.
Alrighty, I'm ready.
It's K Downs, so KDOWNS at Santa-Ana.org.
Very good. Yes. Yes, and a lot of what you were telling me, I have taken the time to look what is the requirement, what laws you guys or guidelines you guys are. I just didn't know about the revisement, that this wasn't all set, for you to go forward. So that's good to know, that you guys are going to be going back and looking at what you guys were thinking of spending money on, and you might have to change it.
Absolutely.
Okay, good to know.
And thank you, Chair Johnson, for allowing me to add a bit.
Yes, thank
Absolutely.
you.
And Director Downs, since she was the first one to submit comments, and we probably all had a little question maybe on the committee of like, oh gosh, I read this, what do we do with it? And I know it's a one-way type thing, but when someone includes their email in it, are we able to respond to them and just say, Mary, thank you for your comment. I would encourage you to attend our next, Major X committee. Is that appropriate? Do you want to look into that? Is there, you know,
We can certainly take care of that on a staff level. Because I also don't want to inundate our the people who submit comments with 7 emails back. So
good
yeah,
point.
we will make a point of taking care of it at the staff level. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be great, because I think we've all been in the spot of where we send off an email, especially if it's through a web submission, and we don't know if anyone's ever read it or not. And so I think that would be helpful for someone in Mary's position, especially since this is a new committee and it's a new process. But Mary, if we had a prize, I would give you a prize for being the first submission. So thank you. Right now, I think we have
Tim. I'm sorry, it's Kristen again. Yeah. Can I just suggest that maybe since we have the 2 guests, maybe we tell them what this committee is the oversight of, the Measure X, yeah, you know, so that she understands what the committee is overseeing.
Sure, certainly. So, I mean, you know, obviously we have a charter with the city council, which, you know, reads very legalistic, but big picture. And Director Downs, if you would correct me if anything I'm saying is misleading, but so the Measure X, this committee is purely a council advisory type role, to where we accept comments from the public as well as disseminate information to the public, as well as provide an annual report and any other information that we think is helpful to the city council regarding the Measure X sales. You know, right now it's a 1.5% sales tax, which was voted upon by the city of Santa Ana voters. And so, I mean, it's purely an advisory type role with no budgetary power per se. But Director Downs, does that somewhat encapsulate our role?
I would add to that in your oversight role, you do receive an audit report directly from the auditors. And so, and you have direct conversations with the auditors at your December meeting. They will be making a presentation to you, and you'll have an opportunity to speak directly with them and ask direct questions of them. So in your oversight role, you are the recipients of that annual audit report, and you have the opportunity to ask questions. And if there were something that was not what you expected in that audit report, maybe some errors or whatever else, you know, auditors could find that would be bad. If you found that in the report and you found that through your discussions with the auditors in your December meeting, you could certainly report that out to the city council. That would be your purview. That would actually be your mandate to do that.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And to be cognizant of maybe I know that Mary, we allowed you to speak at this time. I know that we have one other guest that's online. I want to make sure we extend the same courtesy to, on my screen, it's showing as last name Kaplan. And so I don't know if there's a way that we can make sure that if she was struggling technology wise, to make sure that I extend the same courtesy to Kaplan also.
No, I understand. I'm good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So right now, I think we have a motion and a second. So I initiated the motion, and then Member Perea, I believe, was the second upon that. And so unless there's any further discussion on this item, which I don't see anyone jumping up and down, so if we can call the vote, please.
Hernandez is excused. Cargosian.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Lugo is excused. Pereira.
Aye.
Vice Chair Landaverde.
Aye.
And Chair Johnson.
That's a yes from me also.
Motion passes.
All right, excellent. So moving on to our next item, which is item 3 on our calendar, which is our revenue update. And I see our Mr. Vidal just unmuted himself. So if you could take it away, that'd be great.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Members of the committee, good evening. My name is Sergio Vidal, Assistant Director with the city. The item before you this evening is a sales tax update. Next slide, please. Happy to report, and great news. I'm just happy to report sales tax collected for the fiscal year 2021 total $75.1 million. And to give you just a brief snapshot, within the last quarter for the reporting period, April through June 21st, the city received $21.4 million in sales tax. So if you look at the slides there, it's the bottom three, April, May, and June 2021. This represents the largest total receipt in one quarter since the inception of Measure X. So definitely Measure X revenues is trending up. Next slide, please. On a year-over-year basis, Measure X increased by approximately 22%. So just as a quick reminder, fiscal year 2019-20 was the first full fiscal year that the city was in receipt of Measure X revenues. And last year's total was about $61.8 million. This year, as noted, $75.1 million. That increase, which is about 22% on a year-over-year basis, is mainly due to increases within the general retail category. Some segments within that category are apparel stores, department stores such as big box stores, drugstores, and this consists primarily of the city's cannabis dispensary, and miscellaneous retail, which includes e-commerce companies. So really, we're seeing that strong performance and truly in that miscellaneous retail e-commerce companies for Measure X during the current year. Next slide, please. Again, as we transition over for the upcoming fiscal year 21-22, the adopted budget includes an estimate of Measure X revenues totaling approximately $65 million. And this again is based on our sales tax consultant's recent report, which was in June 2021, so a couple months back, and that was the most likely estimate for the fiscal year. Pardon me, in the fiscal year, within that estimate, within that report in June is a revised estimate of $73.1 million. However, we do have new data that has come in since June, which includes many factors, obviously the economic forecast. A lot has changed in the last 3 months, but also we've trued up our current fiscal year 2021. So we anticipate this may have an impact if the estimate is either to go down or stay at 73.1 million or keep going up further. We have a meeting on the books with the consultant later this month. So any changes will be presented to the City Council for consideration in November during our first quarter budget report. Just as an overall basis, we did receive some feedback. We requested from our consultant that I requested in anticipation of this meeting, and the state as a whole has received more tax revenues when compared to 2019. Obviously, they didn't want to compare to 2020 due to the pandemic, but if just looking at it from a statewide basis, comparing 2021 reporting period versus 2019, they have seen an increase in economic activity. How that is specific to Santa Ana, we will be discussing that during our upcoming meeting later this month. This concludes my presentation. Staff is available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Mr. Vidal. So let's go ahead and if anyone has any questions, let's just do a quick walk around. I'm going to start with Member Perea.
No questions at the moment.
All right, excellent. Member Lewis.
Thank you for the report. No questions at this time.
All right, and Member Cargosian.
No questions. Thank you.
And Vice Chair Landaverde.
Yeah, I do have a quick question. So with what you mentioned about the revenue kind of trending upwards, do you guys anticipate it still going up or trending down with now the new Delta variant coming into play and then just flu season coming in? I know that the holidays are coming in and everyone kind of it's excited about it, but do you guys anticipate it to still go up, or is there any concerns that it could, go down a bit?
That's going to be a great question. Thank you, committee member Landaverde. Really, that's going to be one of our discussion points with the sales tax consultant later this month is what are those factors that go into the forecast? are we going to hold the line at 73.1, which is obviously slightly less than our prior year receipts? And we're going to go into that is what is the impact of the pandemic? So, you know, it's a little tricky with sales tax. This is through the reporting period, June. So definitely the Delta variant was probably primarily in the summer months, July, August, and currently September. So we're very curious to see what those impacts are when we receive our first remittance and related to that later this month. But definitely we'll be, you know, from a perspective from the city, you know, we're cautiously optimistic that the future holds and we'll continue seeing a positive trend in sales tax. To what degree, we'll definitely be discussing that with our sales tax consultant.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Excellent, thank you for that. I have a question in that same line, because I mean, my quick math over the last 3 months of a reporting period, if you go to your slide 2, or just to refer what I'm or reference what I'm referring to, would be that, I mean, during those last 3 months of our fiscal year, we had even though for the year we were up 22%, but that last quarter of our fiscal year, we're up, I think by my rough math, right about 33%. And so I was kind of on that same line of that. I would anticipate most likely that unless things have really cooled off due to the Delta variant here in July and August, which I mean, I don't feel that it necessarily has, but you know, he's going to be the professional on it. That I would anticipate that this is going to be a pretty good sized revision upward. You know, especially compared to our 75 million was our actual for last fiscal year, and our estimate, you know, currently is 73, and we have trending higher in the last quarter of the fiscal year compared to, you know, that 22%. So that means that, you know, the arrow is going up the right direction. Well, I guess depending on how you look at it, but and so I think we need to be prepared for that, and which is that it's going to be, you know, quite a bit, hopefully higher from a budget perspective, to be able to free up some additional funds. And Sergio, was our original, when we voted upon this, it was 60 million. Is that right?
That is correct.
The original estimate was 60, and I wanted to add just a little bit more. Sales tax been going up across the state. It's not just Santa Ana. Right. It's across the state. It's been strong, and it's really kind of defying, you know, experts' expectations about how this would go, and so that's why we're seeing this. So it's interesting. The budget was adopted on June 15th. On June 16th, literally the day after, is the day that we received that $73 million estimate, when we had just adopted a budget with a $65 million assumption. It's like, oh, great. And, you know, and so you're right. I think that we may get, you know, a higher estimate, and our meeting with, when is that, Sergio? The next meeting that we have with, oh, there it is. It's on September 20th. So on Monday, September 20th, we'll find out more. And they may be adjusting it again, but it's really kind of an unprecedented, unpredictable time. And, you know, so who knows what could happen.
Appreciate that. And when you meet with him or her, I think it's a gentleman, if I remember correctly, when you meet with the group, I mean, there's a couple of things just in my you know, everyday life that I deal with on client side that, you know, I would question whether there might be some artificial increases in this fiscal year due to stimulus money that has been you know, put out, as well as you know, some PPP type money from businesses that allowed, even though it's for payroll, but it's freed up some other surpluses along the line that, you know, you might want to just ask if, you know, if any of this is, you know, if he's anticipating any contraction as those have dried up. You know, it's kind of, most of that is actually in this kind of, in this 12-month period that we're looking at here. So although not necessarily in this last fourth quarter of the fiscal year, which is a positive sign on that. And was the 60 million, was that based on 2019 type estimates, or was it based upon, the sales tax consultant's just best estimate, for what he's looking at in the future?
That was based
At
on
that time?
28. Yeah, that was based on 2018. Taking the 2018 economic environment and our 2018 Bradley Burns numbers and trying to apply them to how that would impact a Measure X.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I think that's all I have. And so if unless anyone else has any follow-up questions that those items spurred comments or questions, which I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand. So there's nothing to vote on for this. So and I think that is the end of our business calendar. If I'm looking at the agenda correctly. And so staff, do you have
Sergio's got an expenditure update for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss one? All right, thank you.
No problem. Thank you again, Chair Johnson. No PowerPoint here, just a verbal update, but thank you again, Chair Johnson. My name is Sergio Vidal, Assistant Director of Finance here at the city. I'd like to provide just a brief update on the fiscal year 2021 expenditures related to Measure X. We're on track. Staff is working on its way closing the books for the fiscal year 2021. We don't have final numbers just yet. However, we are on target to provide the information to the city's independent auditors next month in October as they prepare and start gearing up for their audit process related to the city financial statements, including Measure X. A final report will be compiled by the auditors in December 2021, and we anticipate providing that report to the committee during our upcoming or our next meeting in December. Also, as a reminder, staff has established some Measure X dedicated cost centers for ease in both monitoring and tracking expenses during the year. This concludes my presentation. Staff's available to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, how about just raise your hand instead of doing all right, Cargosian, go for it.
My question is, how are we keeping up with the revenue with our expenditures? Are we able to spend it as it's coming in? Are we finding that we have some that's just like sitting around and waiting to be spent? Is there any rule on how long we have to spend the Measure X money, or do we get to set it aside in like a reserve fund and use it on a rainy day? Or is there any kind of strings attached to how quickly it needs to be expended?
Great question, Karima, because it has a lot of questions there. I'll try to take them one by one there. So the Measure X is a general revenue. It goes into the general fund, so it's not separately allocated, and that's by the function of law. It's a general tax, so similar to the Bradley Burns sales tax component, cannabis tax, hotel visitors, etc. All those funds go towards supporting the general fund programs and expenditures, salary benefits for employees, Parks and Rec, public works projects, etc. The police department. I think your next question was, is there a time frame? Well, Measure X really revenues they go towards, as noted in the general fund. Any expenditures or budget savings during the year are carried forward into the next fiscal year. So they may not be directly related to Measure X, but some of those programs or services are tied to Measure X identified spending. So there's not necessarily a time limit, if you will, but there is a carryover of funds. So if a department, say Parks and Rec, indicates, hey, you know what, I was unable to finish that park project, we will anticipate finishing in the upcoming fiscal year. The city has a mechanism where we'll carry over any unspent budget, assuming there is available, into the following year to complete that project. So in theory, that the function of the carryovers into the following fiscal year is an element that is directly or indirectly funded by Measure X. So we don't separately isolate, so to speak, the revenues or expenditures. They're just become a component. And as part of the process as well, or part of our accounting of it, any additional revenues, savings, so forth, it's primarily probably through Measure X, which is one of our highest performing revenues. Then is there any subsequent questions, or did I answer your question there, committee members?
Yeah, at our March meeting, we had briefly talked about how in the next budget cycle, we would look into maybe the possibility of whether we could create dedicated accounts. Is that still something that's being considered?
Yes, we actually implemented that in fiscal year 2021, dedicated cost centers. So we're better able to identify the Measure X identified spending during the year, tracking and monitoring. So we have implemented that during 2021, and it's going to be a process that's going to be noted going forward as well in the upcoming years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. And Sergio, is that those cost centers are a prospective type item for our current fiscal year right now? So would not be anticipated to have anything with our past fiscal year audit, for example. You didn't go back and rework everything, is that right?
Yeah, so we didn't do that for 18-19, or pardon me, fiscal year 2018-19 or 2019-20. It's prospective beginning in fiscal year 2021.
And it's not all in those dedicated accounts.
21-22.
Yes, we implemented it in the prior year, fiscal year 2021, since we haven't closed up shop just yet on the fiscal year. Okay. And I think Director Downs was going to mention that, but also it doesn't include all the expenditures. Some of them require some analysis, so they're not really just simplistically, they're not able to be put into or included within the cost center, but the majority of Measure X identified spending are included within those identified cost centers.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on the expenditure items? All right, so I think now that's the end of our business calendar, and sorry about trying to take one of the items off the agenda there, Sergio. But so, do we have any additional comments that our city staff would like to relay to us?
None for me. Sergio, how about you?
No comments for me. Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
excellent. And so I think this is the time for member comments, and so this would be a time for us to making comments about what we're hearing, about maybe future agenda items or what have you. So let's go ahead and do a walk around here. I'm going to start in the same order as I did before. So Member Perea.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. And it's really great to see the numbers. I think that, it's definitely a lot of us didn't expect Measure X revenue to increase. And so I'm just looking forward to the expenditure report in December, just so that we can better give recommendations to the council for the next fiscal year based on needs of the community, but also based on what we're seeing that this fund is really funding. And so looking forward to our meeting in December.
Excellent, thank you for that. And I forgot my order, but I think I'm going to go with Member Lewis.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you for the report. I second Member Perea's comments. I'm looking forward to the December meeting and the report out from the auditors about expenditures. Thank you very much.
Perfect. And Member Cargosian?
No, I enjoyed today's reports. Thank you for answering the questions. And yeah, the expenditure report is always the fun one to kind of look at. So looking forward to that.
Perfect. And Vice Chair Landaverde.
Just thank you to the staff for providing today's update, and then also to Mary to echo on Member Johnson's comment earlier. Thank you for like stepping up and being our first comment sent out, even though we're not the right committee for that. But I mean, it's awesome to have people and just seeing the community, the concerns that they have, and this is why we're all here. We're trying to just make a better city for us. So thank you, and yeah, looking forward to the meeting in December.
Excellent, thank you for that. Appreciate the hard work everyone's putting in on this. These new changes are always tough with the ARPA money. I know you guys are getting pulled in multiple different directions and whatnot. I would I think we have even though from a revenue perspective that this is all great news, but we have to remember that this is it's our residents' money for the most part. I mean, there's some folks that are coming in from out of town spending, and with this being such a big increase over our original $60 million budget, and I would imagine that at that time Director Downs and her team was probably projecting maybe a 3% increase over a year. So that would put us, at maybe like 64 million and change, would be kind of what they'd be expecting right now. And we're at, 70, I would anticipate it might be closer to 75 million, to maybe even higher. And, we have to remember that this is going to start, it's going to decrease, right? This is a temporary thing. And so it's almost one of those things that, even though this is great from an economic perspective right today, it's going to make coming off of this that much more difficult because the number is going to be even bigger than it was when it was voted upon. And so I would, and we go from a 1.5% current tax to 1%, and then a ramp down to 0. And I'm going to bring this up every once in a while, but we need to figure out how we're going to, adjust things for that. And I would even venture to guess that since this is a sales tax, and sales taxes I'm a tax person, right? And sales taxes are the least progressive tax, meaning that it's a very regressive. The folks that are earning the least amount of money are spending the highest percentage of their income on sales tax. And so even though this is great news from a budget perspective, this is resident money, and I would this is outside of my bucket, but or wheelhouse, but if there's a way to be able to start phasing this down beforehand, I think that's something we should look at. And even though we're all kind of money people and you never want to reduce money, but at some point we're going to have to, or there's going to be another, the remedy is to vote it in, extend it, right? Or find other sources of revenue. So I would just, maybe Director Downs or Sergio, if you could maybe see if there's any, is council able to ramp down from a, I just did quick math. If we're at 1.25%, I think we would, instead of 1.5, we would be closer to the 60 million, plus inflation factor. Or, is there a way to be able to ramp it down that, especially after, the cannabis discussion that's been happening at council with, hey, we weren't expecting it to be that big. And then, so they're able to do some different stuff with it. Is there a way to be able to start making some corrections that's going to make it not so hard in the future to come off of it and, get some more money into our residents' hands at the same time? I know that's a bunch of ramble.
No, the ordinance that was adopted by the voters, it doesn't have an off-ramp for the city council to be able to self-reduce in the meantime. You're right, there are tax measures that are written like that, and where at the city at any time the legislative body could reduce it, within that parameter. But this ordinance was not written like that, so they don't have an off-ramp to be able to reduce it themselves. It is something that we very much have on our minds. I'm not sure that the city council has it on their minds so much. Maybe they do, but it's not really discussed at meetings. I expect to publish a report maybe by about February that goes into some of that. Some of you may be aware that we just did a big, huge pension bond sale. We just sold 425 million of pension bonds to get, to try to derive some savings. And we did really, really well. We sold the bonds at a all-in true interest cost of 2.816 as compared to the 7% that CalPERS is charging us. So that's really good. There is some inherent risk involved in it, so it keeps me up at night. Not good for my health. But we think, I've got some models and we're not done. We did part one by issuing the bonds. Part two is some machinations that we're going to do with CalPERS. It's called a fresh start. I won't bore you. It's basically a resetting of our amortization on the remaining debt that we have to CalPERS. If you want to call me sometime, Tim, I'll walk you through it, or anybody else, but it's there's a process that we have to go through. We're waiting to do that step because CalPERS is going to make some decisions in November that's going to change the chessboard. And so we want to wait until they make their decision. Then we've got all the facts, and then we can, go from there and get our fresh start. We have an additional $40 million that we held back that we're also going to send to CalPERS along with that fresh start. So then we're going to be able to see what we can do in the future. But we think maybe it's possible, no guarantees, but we have models that suggest that what we've been doing with the pension refinancing and with part two of it, the cost reduction strategy, is we may be able to solve about half of the, I'll call it the Measure X problem, the future decreases, not only in 2029, but also in 2039. So don't know if that's going to come to pass, but we have models that suggest that we might be able to do that. So, this was, I don't even think the city council realizes what a big deal this is that we're working through, because we're literally trying to solve, half of a future problem. And so it's a big deal. But the city council is going to have to help solve the other half of that problem. And that involves the city council making some decisions to pull back on, spending or programs or services or staffing or, whatever else. And that's a lot to ask of an elected body. And so we've got a tough hill to climb. If Sergio and I think that we've been, climbing a very big hill with this pension cost reduction strategy, the other half is going to be equally as difficult or actually much worse. But yes, we've been thinking about it and strategizing it. Do you have anything to add to that, Sergio?
We're looking forward to climbing that hill again, but definitely Director Downs summarized it very well. We took into account when refinancing the city's pension debt, those decreases in the outer years. So it's definitely something that's been on our mind and something we have to keep up with where we could find some long-term savings, and we can cobble up those decreases unless something changes before 2029 and obviously 2039 as well. But great summary, Kat. Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Well, that makes me feel better that that you've if the chips fall where they hope to fall, that some of it's been taken care of, because this is the thing that scares me the most about the entire thing of Measure X is that off ramp, and how do you at that point it very well be maybe $90 million that will be coming off of in 2028, 29, I think is when that, and so always for the 0.5% decrease, but it's, so I appreciate you keeping it in the forefront with the council, and hopefully recognize that and start to take some action, because the earlier that it's done, I think the better it can be absorbed. But so that's all that I have, other than saying thank you very much to the three of you, and appreciate you making this easy on all of us, technology wise. I don't know if this will be our last Zoom meeting or not. I think it kind of depends on some things that are happening with the variants and with COVID and all that type of stuff, whether we'll continue to be doing online or in person. But I appreciate all the technology changes that have happened, and Kristen, you did a great job on your own. So thank you very much. All right, well, I think that is it. So unless there's any objections, we will adjourn this meeting to our next regular scheduled meeting, which is December 8th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. And so that's it. Thank you much.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, good
Have a
night.
good evening.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.